Should Faker retire?
You've ascended to the peak of this. How is this a reaction that you have?
Who's going to win between Team Liquid and Cloud9?
So I think there's a lot of intangibles that are going to be really hard draft-wise for C9 to deal with.
I would put Huni above Impact. You cannot be the best in your lane when you cannot individually carry a team. Palafox is a bottom 2 mid laner right now in North America.
Mm-hmm. I mean...
Do you agree, disagree?
Okay. Stats-wise, results-wise, yeah. Like, I mean, if you just look at it, right? Like, I mean, if you just watch their most recent kind of performance against Dig, that was pretty bad. And I've worked with Palafox a lot in the past. He used to be on C9 Academy. Very, very good. And obviously, he is a competent mid laner when it comes to his potential. Like we saw him lane against Faker, right? Palafaker is a thing. Like he's comfortable playing against very high levels of competition. This has been one of his worst splits I've ever seen. Like, and I think it's not just him. I think that the whole team is just disjointed, looks all over the place. Specifically as mid laner, your job also becomes infinitely harder when you're not playing around there's no clear direction on the team. It's one of the worst roles, honestly. If your team is, and anyone who's played League knows this, if you're playing mid lane, your jungler's behind, your bot lane's losing, you're so screwed because you're gonna what do you try to leave your lane and roam to a losing lane, or you sit there and you get camped by the enemy jungler. It's miserable. Like, so I feel bad for him because I don't think it's a reflection of him as a player, and I honestly don't believe in the whole concept of esports drop-offs. Like, oh, this player's washed. You know, like they used to be good, they lost their touch. I do think it happens to some players later on, but it's not like a between year thing. It's like over 3 to 4 years, you'll see a drop off. Is Jensen as dominant as Jensen was at his peak? I don't think so. Right? Was Bjergsen same thing? Like at the end of his career? No, of course not. But I don't think it's like, oh, one season to the next, Palafox just became incompetent. I think it's more so there's some dysfunctional stuff going on with that team as a whole, and it makes his job really hard.
You kind of defended him towards the end, so I'm actually going to go the other way and say that he is a bottom 2 mid laner right now, and it's not the problem of his team. I think when you look at mid lane right now, it is absolutely OP. Like there's so much resources, time, attention that is being put into mid lane, and he is being fed all of these resources, and he is actively throwing them away. He's trying to do these superhero plays where you see them, they get their kills on Dignitas. They don't need to overchase, and then he overchases, dashes, flashes, gets killed multiple times. And it's not the first time this has happened. Last split, playing against Rich, who's not Rich, sorry. Who did they bring in mid lane on Dignitas?
Well, this split was obviously Jensen, but
last split it was Rich top, and then the mid laner was Dove. Yeah, Dove. So Dove absolutely put Palafox in the dumpster to the point that Palafox was like actively like he got solo killed, TPs into lane, walks up, gets like 60% of the HP taken in a trade, and then has to walk back. And even afterwards, he was like, I don't know what I was doing. Ever since that play, he has actively been performing as a bottom 2 mid laner. If we had 10 like LCS teams, he would still be bottom 2. That's how bad he's playing.
Sure. I guess you're right, because it sounds like I'm defending him, but I'm defending his capability. I don't think he's a bad mid laner. I think right now he's playing bad. I think he's definitely performing badly, and I don't know if it's a reflection of his skill level relative to other mid laners right now, or if it's again kind of indicative of an ongoing team issue. Maybe he's tilted, like that happens. Maybe he's just frustrated. Maybe he's autopiloting. Maybe he's going into games thinking like, if I don't carry these guys, we're not going to win. And so he overdoes things, and then ends up actually costing them a lot of games. It's a whole, like, who on NRG right now is winning?
The bottom lane. They won both games. They were actively diving and, getting sums and stuff. And
I would say, though, contracts is still playing pretty. Like he's consistent. I think Dokla has been a liability to a lot of games. Like it makes it hard. But no, I could see your point. I think any team that's bottom 3 in the standings is probably gonna have a bottom 2 mid laner stats wise as well, unless they were like Jojo Pune when on EG, where he was just like solo carrying every game. But it's tough because I don't think Palafox is historically been this bad ever. But yeah, this split looks pretty miserable. And from my early season projections, I honestly thought Energy was gonna have more of a bounce back compared to spring. So I'm a little disappointed in them. It just feels like they have been getting worse as the split's been going, rather or leveling off. They started really bad, they got a little bit better, and then they kind of tapered off again, and now they're like stuck in this perennial bottom three role. Like I don't, it doesn't look good.
I don't
Um,
actually think they've gotten better. I think they played against
that's
like
fair
a
too.
disorganized Shopify. Like if we played them this week again, I'm pretty sure we would have won that 2-0. Like we look
Yeah,
cleaner than we
yeah,
did. And they beat Immortals,
yeah.
who cannot for the life of them close out leads. Like they can be
I
10,000 gold up. They
Immortals.
just can't. They can't.
Immortals is the most confusing team I think I've seen. Like even today, 100 Thieves. Like what was that, man? Like oh my god.
Yeah, and the
I
games against Energy were like bigger throws. Tactical actively like walked all the way up without anyone else near him, and then Palafox comes in and shuffles in same spot where Ruler got shuffled,
yeah.
and they won the game from there. But like it's the same thing where yeah, they refuse to win.
And the meta right now actually seems to favor his champ pool. So I don't understand. You're right. Like I don't understand what's going on. It's not like you can't play Azir, you can't play some of these other champs that he likes to play. You know, even like they're not even going into comfort picks. I feel like they're just playing whatever, and then it's not working out for him. So I don't know if it's his laning or is his he's not being as precise. Like it's tough. But I do think this is summer too. So in summer, the better teams always get better, right? Like you this is where you start to see the disparity increase usually is TL, C9, FlyQuest, and it's exacerbated, especially the split by the best of threes. I think best of threes has made the records so obviously it's removed the fluke bias, right? Like people have
Hmm.
been like, oh, is C9 actually that good in the past splits when they would lose to like Dignitas or they'd lose to Immortals randomly or like Shopify, or NRG was always the one, right? But in a best of three, you don't have those random fluke games get washed under the other two. So now we're seeing okay, the top three are head and shoulders above everyone else, and you have like two teams that are like what 1 and 2 loss. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, that's I think it's the split, the parity should have been bigger, but it's not, and it's very strange to me. I would have assumed both of these games would have been 2-1s, and they both looked like they were going to be 2-1s.
Yeah,
It looked like Energy were going to win that
yeah.
first game, and it looked like Immortals
100
were going to
Thieves
win.
had no reason winning that game. Like,
Yeah, I talked to Ayla, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure. They kind of just let us win."
yeah, you know what I don't. Well, this is a slightly different topic, but obviously you saw all the drama and all that on Twitter about Tomo and like the messaging around installing him, and
No,
you see all
I
that?
missed it.
Oh, so basically 100 Thieves made a statement like, "Oh, Meech is being benched, or Meech is stepping down due to mental health issues, all this stuff." Golden Glue said, "Hey, the team had to make a decision, and we wish him the best." And then everyone started jumping on it, like, "What do you mean you made a decision? That sounds like you benched him, and then you're using mental health as an excuse to bring Tomo." So it was just bad wording, and I don't work with anyone on the org anymore. I don't know anyone personally like that I've talked to about this. So I don't know what actually happened, if it's that or they're just using it as an excuse. But now what I'm afraid of is that they're going to look at those games and be like, oh, see, it was the right move. We put Tomo in, and now we're starting to turn our season around. It's like they kind of threw, like,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
those aren't games to be proud of. I think is the gist of the argument. It's like just because you won doesn't mean you improved.
Right.
It just means you
That's the
played
hard
against
part with fans,
Immortals.
right? Like if you're not looking at the game analytically, so many fans will be like, "Oh, this team is X number of wins. They're really, really good." And you're like, if you watch their wins though, oh my gosh, they were like struggling uphill the entire way, and they managed to choke out a random fight, in the last 40 minutes. Like, uh,
NRG's
yeah.
4 wins were like that.
Yeah, exactly. They're not good, right? So if you look at the eyeball, I mean, if you were to tell me with the same record, NRG or Dig, I'm taking Dig every day of the week. Like it's you just watch the games and you're like the record doesn't reflect how like not even these teams are right now. It's I don't know. I we'll see. I'm really excited for the C9 TL series. I do think it's gonna be very close, but from the games I've watched, it feels like TL should be a stronger team even with a slightly worse record. I feel like they're just better.
Yeah, that's one of the topics we're going to talk about. But I actually want to stick with the mid laner. The next topic
Yeah.
is, and I'll let you go first again, whichever
Okay.
side you
I'll
want to
try to
take?
be more. I'll try to be more on one side this time. I'm sorry.
All right, cool. Should Faker retire? Did you see first of all the what happened?
I made a tweet. I was actually up really late last night watching VCT champs because I wanted to see Leviathan play, and so I also happened to catch that T1 end of the game, and I was like, "What is going on?" And so I sent a tweet at like 3:30 in the morning because I was like, that's something you would never expect to see from a player like Faker. At this stage in his career. And I know there's a few different takes on it where people are like, "Oh, it just shows how passionate he still is and all that." But I'm like, if you are a player who's hit every single milestone in this game, you've ascended to the peak of this. How is this a reaction that you have at that point? Is it so? There's two things. Is it either he is so frustrated by losing to Chovy and losing to Gen G that this was the culmination of he's like, I cannot beat these people. And it's just, like Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan never, ever stopped hating losing. So is it like that? Or is this an indication of he's just burnt out and he's so tired? If it's the latter, I think he could consider, is this a time to retire? Like, is this my last year? I mean, you just won worlds. What else is there? Like the only thing he could possibly do at this point to cement his legacy even more is to like pull a golden road off, but that's so unreasonable, like to expect as another trophy to earn. But like, I don't know. I think it really depends on the nature of why that was happening. It does indicate that he's having maladaptive responses to what happened. Like, no player in his position should ever respond like that after a game that in reality doesn't really matter. This wasn't a world's final. This wasn't like, he's now somehow not going to have a chance to play. It was very, very odd to see that. And I'm wondering if there's going to be a statement from T1 coming out or not.
Yeah, I'm interested to that too. For people who haven't seen what happened, basically after Faker had a abysmal performance both games, but especially when he was playing on the Azir, he was like not EQing. He was straight up just pressing E without the Q, and then like almost died. And owner had to like flash and die for him, and he was just missing like mechanics that you would be surprised to. On Corki, he was like valking in the wrong direction and everyone was just jumping on him. And so like obviously some people speculate that it was because he was upset and disgusted with his own performance, whatever it is. I mean, we can speculate. But also with the burnout topic, if you look back at this roster starting in 2022, they made it to spring finals. They won that. They went to MSI, made it to game 5 against RNG, lost.
Yeah.
They then made it to the finals of summer, lost to Gen G, went to finals, world finals, game 5, lost to DRX. 2023, they did the same thing, except in MSI, they make it to the lower bracket finals. Then they make it to Worlds. They win Worlds. In the offseason, they have a tournament, a Red Bull tournament. They have to fly all the way to Paris or to France.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly where. And they have to like do all the sponsor stuff. They come back 2024, do the same thing, make it to lower bracket finals in MSI, make it to finals in spring, go all the way to EWC, another tournament that wasn't even there last year. So burnout,
and they
when
won
you talk
that,
about
yeah.
that, and they won that. They waited all the way to the end, played almost all the games they possibly could, except for one. They won that.
Yeah.
And they came back. Like, burnout sounds like a real thing.
I'm pretty sure they also played as many games as possible at EWC. I think every single
game
like,
except the finals was 3-1.
Oh, okay,
but
yeah,
that's basically
right. Yeah, almost every game possible in most of those series, they went to the last game. So it's unreasonable to expect any human being to be able to do that and not feel some percentage of burnout. And then when you're talking like Faker specifically, right? Like, he's been doing this for 10 plus years. And last year he did have to take time off. He had some nerve issues, he had some arm issues. What I've always said, especially when it comes to esports injuries, 99% of the time the injury is masking the deeper burnout, and the injury is an excuse to stop. So it's not that the injury is not real, but if a player was a rookie and they had some of the injuries that you typically see in esports, they would take a month off or something, they would recover, they'd come right back. None of these injuries are career ending. The career ending part is when they decide it's not worth it for me to come back from this, and I'd rather just get healthy. And then, like Uzi took basically a whole year and a half off, came back, played a little bit, didn't do very well, and he's like, you know what, I just don't want to play this anymore. And he stopped. So it's very indicative. It's something I've seen across the board in almost every game, not just league, every game. Players who retire from injuries and barring trauma, 99% of the time it's at the point when they decide that the career is not worth me dealing with this. It's not the injury itself that says, oh, you can no longer play the game.
So having said all of that, should Faker retire?
So I know I wish I could give you a yes or no. If it's because of mental burnout, if it's because he's decided like I just can't do this grind anymore, yeah, he should absolutely retire. If it's from a selfish fan perspective, I don't want him to retire like this. I want him to finish the year out, and I want him to like go to Worlds and have a really strong showing, maybe win another Worlds. If he wins Worlds, he should retire regardless, I think. I think that's when you just you walk off on top. You know, like you've just had the most brutal stretch of years, 3 years, basically any professional player could have, and you've won multiple times, you've won different events. Like it's at that point, just hang it up, walk away on top. What I don't want to see is if he doesn't retire and next year he comes out and he's just not the same, and he goes through this again where we see another video of him slamming his desk or slamming, like hitting his head again or something. Like I don't want to see him go that route of like falling into, man, I remember when he was so good. This sucks watching him now. Like I don't want him to get to that point. I want him to go out like a legend. But if he's truly burnt out, if he really is at a mental state where he just cannot play the game, yeah, I obviously want him to retire right now. But if it's more just, hey, he was frustrated, and actually, it's so funny because literally yesterday, I completely choked the game of Valorant. I was playing like ass. I was like 0-14 at one point, and I was like, I slammed my head like 3 times in my hand. I was like, I'm so dog at this game. I suck. I'm gonna uninstall. And then like that was that night. And then a few hours later, I see the whole Faker thing. And so I was talking to my girlfriend about it today, and she's like, "You're just like that." So I get that part of it. I don't think he should retire if he was just frustrated by one game and he's like, or one series. He's like, you know what? I just played like ass. I just hate myself right now, and I never want to play like that again. I get that frustration. As if it's indicative of a deeper, bigger issue, then yeah, I don't think it's something to mess with. But he should absolutely not retire if he was just like, hey, I had a really bad day. If he just comes out and he says, you know what, I know it looks really bad. I don't usually do this. I was so upset by how I played that night. That's all it was. No, I think it's fine. That's he's a hyper competitor, and he's lost against Chovy how many times in a row now? Like it's frustrating.
I will that part I definitely agree with. I think even if Faker wins World, I don't want him to retire. I think Faker retiring would be a mistake. I wouldn't be against him taking like a split off. But retiring, when we last split, a lot of people forget, last split before MSI, he looked like, the top 2 mid laner in the world. He was playing
Yeah.
out of his mind. Like the whole reason they were so close to beating Gen G was because Faker on his champions was playing out of his mind. The year before, during summer, he could only play like 3 or 4 champions. And that's why Gen G just kept beating him. KT decided not to ban his champions, and that's how he made it to finals. And when his champions were banned, he wasn't playing well. And then he came back.
Yeah. As they say, he still has it. I was at Worlds 2022, the semifinals against JDG and Atlanta. I went to that. It was the best League of Legends I've ever seen in my life, quality-wise. Like, and Faker was playing out of his mind, pulling out the Rise, game 4, just like stunting on people. It was incredible, right?
Oh, against JDG, yeah.
Yeah. But then when he lost to DRX, he just didn't have a good performance. His team played well enough; they should have honestly won, but he didn't have a great performance. He didn't show up. So then the next year, when they ended up winning last year, it was like Faker was Faker. It was like he was carrying that whole game basically from mid lane. And so you can definitely see he's got it, right? He has the peak. He can clearly still be a top 3 mid laner in the world. I don't doubt his abilities. You're saying you want him to stay because you want to see how long he can keep doing that, or
no? I think that he needs to figure out some healthy way of recovering, because I think if you just look at sort of his level right now, I would say he's at a peak level. It's just maybe burnout, maybe some sort of stress, maybe something's happening in his personal life that we don't know about. That stuff happens,
Sure.
And so, if you're able to fix that, you will have a peak level Faker. If I asked this question last year, I would have said yes, he should retire. But the fact that in spring he showed such impressive play to the point where I was like, man, this is Faker of the old. How is he so consistent? Like, how is he
Yeah,
back at this level? Because we saw his level of 2023, and
yeah,
again, he wasn't like hard carrying. And then in spring, he's playing like a hard carry. In summer, he's not doing that, but you already know he can be back there with just a
yeah.
couple changes.
I do wonder if that break that he took when he was injured, right? Injured, like that really reset him a lot and got him ready for Worlds. I think it's kind of indicative that you can't just keep going at the pace that they're going continuously. It's just not possible. They don't even like the Korean work ethic, the way that they're, especially T1, the way they're doing it with all of these smaller events plugged in between. It's not sustainable because they just grind way too much. There's no peaking. They're at a constant peak almost every 2 months, which means that there's no mental recovery, there's no physical recovery. They never take a break from the game. They're going from patch to patch to patch. It's like that's exhausting. I don't know how they're actually managing to do that with the players. I mean, the younger guys, I guess it's they've only been doing this for a few years, so they're probably thinking this is the norm. But for someone like Faker, like it's got to get to the point where, if especially because you want everything, like how hard is it to stay motivated to continue being the best at that point?
I wish I was able to interview Faker during MSI, but everyone was requesting Faker, so
Of course,
he
yeah,
was hard to land. Uh, but it is a question of like what drives you to play, because we've heard what Kobe said, we've heard what Shaq said, and they have very different answers, and you can tell from their level of play they had very different like motivations, and
yeah,
there's the reason it's called the Mamba mentality. Michael Jordan
yeah,
as well. We don't have the same level of documentation, but we still know, like you were saying earlier, how much he hated losing, and it wasn't just about winning. It was like, I don't want
yeah.
to lose.
And actually, it's interesting you bring those two up because like Kobe and Michael Jordan, who are probably the two that I consider the most like dead center, ruthless, like one dimensional approach to winning of like never giving up. But they're also very different, right? Kobe was all about I want to show I'm the best and I know I'm the best. Michael Jordan was proving everyone wrong because he was like that Tom Brady, where initially they didn't think he was going to be a superstar in college, or anything, and then he's like, and they're getting drafted, and then he became who he was. But it was like he said that when he first started playing basketball as a kid, he was not seen as like good. He had to go practice. It was all practice, and like Kobe's just relentless work ethic. That guy was actually there's something like wrong with him. Like there was like he straight up had an issue because he would win an NBA finals. And I read if you've ever read Relentless, Tim Grover.
No, I haven't read it. Yeah.
But basically it's the athletic trainer who worked with both Kobe, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade. And he was talking about how Kobe would win an NBA finals, call him on his phone that night instead of celebrating, be like, I missed 3 shots I should have made. Meet me in the gym in like 2 hours. And he would go and take the same shot for like 100, just until he nailed it. Like the guy was unbelievably focused and just never ever took his eyes off what he wanted. But I don't know, because yeah, all the interviews with Faker, everything I've seen media wise of Faker, he just seems kind of quiet and wants to be good at what he does. It doesn't seem like there's this outward personality effect of like, he doesn't talk a lot of trash. He doesn't like, you know, boast about very much at all. He just states what he thinks is true, which is I think I can win. Like
Yeah, I'd love to be able to get like a deeper dive into his brain and figure out
yeah,
why are you continuously playing when you could just retire and be the greatest player ever, when you could just
right.
retire and be a coach, or
Yeah,
even take an offer from China and go play on a team, and it'll probably be a
yeah,
really good team and you'll probably be paid a lot. It's something that I what drives Faker. I think that
yeah.
if we answer that question, we can kind of definitively say should Faker retire. But I think as of right
Sure.
now, I think that retiring would be a mistake on his end.
Makes sense. Yeah, and it's actually interesting. He's sort of also has that mystique about him because specifically nobody really knows that much about him, right? Like the whole storyline between the DRX T1 final was like, oh, DRX Deft, like his whole story coming up. He was in Faker Shadow. He's like trying to get there, but we never really hear about like Faker being who he is. He's always just been the king, the unkillable Demon King. He came onto the scene was just immediately this like monster. But there's not even a lot of interviews out there where he really dives into his motivations or anything about himself. It's just always talking about the game. Like, oh, like they were very strong, and I thought we had a good team this year, and it's like always very like just what you would expect a champion to talk about the game. But it was very little about him as a person. I actually don't know that much about him and his background and like how he came up and all that before basically becoming who he is now as a legend. But I talked to Impact about him. I used to ask Impact because he played with him obviously in the first year that SKT won, and he said Faker's he just said he's an interesting person. He's quiet. He's like he doesn't really give you very much in terms of like he's funny. He said he's funny, but he's not like outward like a huge personality. Like some players you see like JoJo, right? He's just a big personality.
Yeah.
And I don't think you really get that from Faker. It's just kind of like he's just the GOAT of the game.
Next topic. I know you've already kind of threw your vote out for Team Liquid, but who's going to win between Team Liquid and Cloud9? And since I already know you're taking Team Liquid, I'll take the Cloud.
Okay, you say Cloud9? All right.
Yeah, I think Cloud9's going to win. And
okay, well, tell me why.
Let me throw you a couple statistics. C9 have the highest gold percentage rating, have the highest first blood percentage, have the highest first tower percentage, highest first to 3 tower, Herald control, grub percentage, first Drake, Baron control, and highest gold difference at 15 in the league. They also have fewer combined kills per minute than Team Liquid, which means they're dying less and they're just getting more kills and being cleaner. And so basically have less fiestas than Team Liquid. And this is, courtesy of Ali Hassanain on Twitter.
Yeah,
He's sort of,
I argued with her on the original tweet, and then she showed all the stats I liked. I was like, actually, yeah, good points. Like, I didn't even look at the stats. I was going off like just the eyeball test of what I was watching. But yeah.
Yeah, and then when a lot of people talk about, strength of schedule, Cloud9 have played Shopify, so have Team Liquid. Cloud9 have played 100 Thieves, so have TL.
Mm-hmm.
They've both played Immortals. They've both played Dignitas. The only difference is that Cloud9 played NRG and Team Liquid played FlyQuest in the first game of the split. So there's one game difference. So it's not even a strength of schedule anymore. It's just like, yeah, TL happened to play one different team.
Debatable because strength of schedule, not just the same team, but at what point did you play the team, right? Like some teams have been getting better. So playing them later is sort of different than playing them early. Similar, like the same argument could apply that you're like, oh, well, you could diminish the FlyQuest game as well as very early, right? FlyQuest is beginning of the season. The teams in the beginning of the season are never as strong as they are later, ideally.
And Quad didn't look half as good as he does now, yeah.
Right. So you can argue that, but then you can also say the same thing about playing Shopify week 1 versus Shopify later, right? Like, I think Shopify week 1 was just like, what is going on? And
yeah, both teams played a weak Shopify, so I think both teams.
Let's just take strength. I think the point is valid though. Let's take strength of schedule off the table. It's essentially even. Mm-hmm. And their stats look better. I think the reason I'm going to say TL, and it's not by much, right? If we're talking odds, I'd say 60-40. It's not like it's 80%. I'm going to say TL is going to win. I think it's going to be very close. I'm guessing 2-1. But I think TL wins mainly because they have played very, very good competition more recently. They went to EWC. They played very well against T1. They honestly should have taken 2 games off of them. They've been playing consistently well since MSI. I think APA's champ pool is always going to cause problems in draft, no matter what. Like you have to respect it, and it just adds a variability factor that C9 has to account for that they just have never historically really been able to do with APA. I don't think any teams have ever effectively been able to do anything about it, right? Like giving him Ziggs or giving May Souls, like you don't want to give him that, but he can also play other champs. Like he's been very good on other champions too. He's fine playing someone else. It creates issues for them. And if we're gonna go really deep dive, historically, who is C9's coach now?
Reapered.
Right. Historically, Reapered has struggled a lot against TL for whatever reason. Like he outthinks. I've seen this when I was working with them back in like 2018, 2019, 2020. Reaper kind of outthinks himself going against TL for whatever reason. Like whenever he goes against really good teams, sometimes he sort of outdrafts himself, and it doesn't have to be as complex as that, right? So you'll see sometimes where he'll pull a draft out like the Nidalee Renekton and stuff, and it's like we didn't have to do this. We could have gone. He's been playing a lot of Nidalee lately too. They'll sometimes just go with the direction that's a little like almost thinking 3 steps ahead when they didn't even have to go. They could have just played what was meta. So I think there's a little bit of a mental issue with TL specifically that I've seen in the past. Now, obviously, it's a different team, right? TL of the past was a very, very different, I guess, roster and everything. But there's some returning players. You got Impact, you got Core JJ. They know C9 very well, especially Impact, right? He's played with the org, he's played for Reaper. He knows inside out how they want to think. And one of the things that I've always really respected about Impact, having worked with him at EG, is that he knows how to pull that stuff out in meetings and be like, I know this player. I know what their response is going to be if we do this, and he will set that scenario up. He's like, they're going to see you vanish, Core JJ, and this was when he was playing with EG. So he was oh, Vulcan, if you vanish off the screen, this guy's going to come down. He's always going to try to catch you, thinking you're roaming. So if you just disappear and you come back, like there's so many ways that he sets up scenarios based on how knowing the people. He will also be really active and probably creating draft issues for C9 because they'll have pocket picks that he's aware of playing. The best example of that was when they played against, it was Ornn meta and nobody had a counter for Ornn. So they were playing against TL, right? It was EG versus TL. Nobody had a counter for Ornn except Impact is like, in game 3, I'm going to pull out Mordekaiser. And they're like, what? He's like, I played it before. I know how to play. I know how to win this. Nobody's even seen this matchup in like a year. So yeah, he pulls it out. They smash, he smashes the lane or whatever. So I think there's a lot of intangibles that are going to be really hard draft wise for C9 to deal with. I also think that as a whole, I just trust if there is a fiesta, right? I don't think both teams are going to have a very clean game against each other. I think it's going to kind of turn into a bit of a brawl. In a situation like that, I kind of trust TL's decision making a little bit more right now. I think C9's gotten much better since spring. I think they're showing improvement consistently every week as well with their macro, with their decision making. They're like obviously, their laning has always been good. Thanatos is going to continue improving. I do think that there's still too fresh of a roster with Thanatos to fully shock on. Also, his English, right? Like, how effective is he going to be at calling compared to Fudge, who obviously was much more well versed with the team? In a situation where there's a lot of chaos going on, I usually end up banking on the team that's been together a little bit longer in order to make the right call and actually act on it together. So I think it'll be close, but I think TL has an advantage just in terms of being together longer, having a little bit more exposure and veteran status when it comes to being in different situations as a whole right now. And they're going to probably respond to the mess, in my opinion, a little bit better than C9 will.
All respect to Impact, he is. It's funny that you went into all this detail about Impact because our next topic is going to be explicitly about Impact. But I will give Impact his props. I don't think Thanatos is going to get a 30 to 40 CS lead against Impact like he did with other top laners. That's not going to happen. But I think what your arguments going against each other make no sense. You're saying that it's going to be a fiesta, but then Team Liquid are going to get out on top. Team Liquid have been the most controlled team. They have better setups than everyone else. And when things turn to fiesta, they lose. You know why? Because it's very difficult for them to win when you're down gold. When you're laning against Palafox versus when you're laning against Jojo Plune, those are two very different, mid laners. Jojo Plune is playing way better than he was before, and he was, in my opinion, robbed of MVP last split. You have Berserker, who's playing a lot better, and he's better in team fights than Yon. It's just an objective truth. This is his meta. You have Vulcan, who's playing way better than last split. Vulcan last split looked like he was an NPC, and he got called out by Bwipo that he's just an NPC. This split, he's back in the groove. And so you don't have an advantage bottom lane. You don't have the advantage mid lane because Jojo Pune's going to play whatever into whatever, and he's going to win that matchup because it's Jojo Pune. And so when you get into these team fights, these skirmishes, these fiestas, when you're down in gold and not up in gold 3,000-4,000 because the other team doesn't know how to set up vision properly, you don't need that. You don't need the communication from Thanatos. You just need him to be even against Impact because, again, you can try pushing your lead. You're going to be even against Impact. What, you're going to get like a 10 CS lead? Like, who cares? Right? You're going to have these gold leads. You're going to have better positioning because you have more gold. And Team Liquid aren't going to get away with all the stuff that they have been getting away with. A reason they played very well against T1 was, again, their mid laner, T1, Faker, wasn't playing that well. If Faker was playing well, Team Liquid had no business in any of those games. But the fact that they found a point where they could actually have control, they're not going to find that against Cloud9. Cloud9 are the best laning team. And when you have more gold, it makes it easier for you to set up and win these fiestas. And so I see no way where Team Liquid can actively win these fiestas if it does turn into fiesta. If it's a controlled game where you have to macro and you have to side lane and things like that, I can agree with you. Team Liquid do have an avenue there. But when it comes to team fighting, when it comes to like these skirmishes, 2v2, 3v3, um, Blabber is playing the Nidalee. What is Umpty playing? He can't play any of these AP champions. And people pointed
Yeah.
out, and Spawn was like, yeah, right now these champions are working for us. We're gonna play the Sejuani. We're gonna continue playing these like Vi and Wukong and stuff, or not Wukong, but Jax and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Again, that's not gonna work in a team that has a 2,000 gold lead to 15 minutes. You're not gonna be
Yeah.
able to out team fight them just because you have better setups when you're down gold.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that because if you are down gold, you're not going to force the fight, right? Team Liquid is very good at understanding the situation, right? So if they're down gold against T1 or whatever, they weren't really. They had 2 games where they're up on gold, but if you're down gold, they will set it up so that they can catch waves out on the sides. They're not going to try to force fight. Again, the champ pool APA is playing is not going to be looking for that, right? You're playing very safe farming champions. You're trying to scale. You're trying to get ahead. You're trying to make macro work for you. Get setups on objectives. They're very good at trading very quickly. And I think that's actually the interesting thing about this matchup too, is we've seen these are the 2 best teams at actually just trading objectives. They're not sitting around watching people take a drag. They will just go and take something else. They'll say, oh, hey, we don't have setup. We're not going to fight this. We'll go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So reactively, they've been playing a lot better around tempo and all that stuff. TL, though, I think has the potential. I know the stats support C9 having a really strong early game. Again, that's stats against teams that are not as good. Both teams have a very good early game. When it comes down to it, though, we have seen peaks from TL early where they can take a 3,000, 4,000 gold lead against T1. They can set it up. They can read what C9 is going to want to do. A lot of the Nidalee stuff I don't think is just going to work that well against a team that's actually set up right, because Nidalee requires setup. You can't just take Nidalee and just start running at people, right? If they have vision, you're kind of just screwed on your gank. So I feel like there's a lot of laning that could be debatable. I do think Jojo Pyun is going to probably at least win lane by a bit, if not dominate lane. But again, if Impact, or I mean, if AP is playing a champ where he doesn't necessarily have to win lane, he just has to basically farm and stay alive and absorb pressure. He's been very good at that. Impact versus Thanatos could be a coin flip. I think Thanatos is very good. He's still technically a rookie, and there's things that are probably abusable about him. We haven't seen huge champ pool depth yet, but like, if they give him a couple of comfort picks, he's going to be totally fine. Berserker is playing a lot better. If they give him Zeri, I think we're going to have problems. Like, you cannot give him that champion. It doesn't matter right now with Zeri being in the meta. It doesn't matter like what the matchup even is. You cannot give him that champion. So it'll be close. I definitely think momentum wise, whatever team gets ahead early is going to have obviously a much smoother route to win. If TL gets ahead early, it's going to be really rough, I think, for C9, because they're going to get choked out and all that. And then that's when you see the fiesta from C9. When they get down, they will start throwing things. They will start trying to create fist fights in River. They'll start trying to just take these small, like, this is a historic thing with C9. They like to take fights when they're down in order to force an advantage somewhere. TL generally doesn't like to do that. They like to look for where they have an advantage and pressure it harder. So I definitely think it'll be an interesting thing to see how the early game goes. Jojo also technically, I think he is one of the better first solo blood laners in the league. He almost always recognizes when he has kill potential, and he'll call it out. So it's sort of depend on APA, because I think APA is pretty good at surviving that, but APA doesn't have very good first blood all in unless someone just egos him and dives him under turret or something a lot of times. But like, he doesn't tend to just find that angle. So I definitely see if there's an early lead, it's probably going to be Blabber playing around mid lane, Blabber playing around bot lane. I think, again, it really comes down to, okay, if we're winning in mid lane, I think Blabber is a less, I don't want to say less consistent. This goes back to your argument. I don't know if Blabber's been the best jungler in the league.
He's been better than Umpty. Umpty has been invisible. He's been playing tanks when everyone else he's not playing the meta. He can't even play these champions.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like, yeah, he can definitely play the AP, carry type junglers. I'm wondering if TL also historically has pulled out some weird picks against C9 before, if it is coming down to that. If they're going to pull something else out too. I mean, I don't understand. Personally, this is not even related to Umpty specifically. I don't understand how a pro jungler can't learn Karthus, or like can't learn Brand, right? Like just like power farm, walk up, press, QE and stuff like, or EQ. Like I don't know. I just I can't foresee how, if you really, really need to learn, I don't think you can learn Nidalee in a week, but I think you can easily learn some of these power full clearing junglers, carry junglers in a week if you just sit there and play 20, 30 games.
Not if you're Umti. If you look at his playstyle, he's a heavy invading jungler, and so he needs these junglers that like don't need to full clear. Right? That's his whole
Yeah.
thing. Is that I'm not going to full clear. I'm
Well,
going
I
to
mean,
find where my lanes are pushing, where my lanes are winning, and invade with the help of impact, with the help of APA. But when you can't
yeah.
do that, because once you invade, guess what? It's a Zyra, and she's already done with her clear, sitting bot bush for 30 seconds waiting for crap to spawn.
Right, right. I mean, that's what I mean, though. It's like I just this goes to a whole other discussion about play style, right? Like, what is play style? There's no play style. There's optimal for whatever you've picked, and then there's suboptimal. So I just don't understand how anyone at a challenger pro level could not learn how to do that, right? Like, you can learn to play early game champs, but you could also learn how to play late game champs. It may not fit your desired play style. You don't like playing them, but I just can't understand how a pro coaching staff couldn't eventually get a player to just at least be confident on a variety of champs like that. That's always been a league thing, They'll be like, oh, this player can't play this champion. And I see it. There's certain things where someone like Blabber, who's played a ton of Nidalee and used to be kind of a Nidalee one trick, he will do things on that champion that a lot of players can't or don't know how to do. So there's that. But for a champ like Brand, there's not a lot of mechanics. There's the Zyra. There's not a lot you need to know. You kind of just need to know the basics of how the champ works, and then certainly a coach should tell you, like, this is how long this takes to do this clear. You just practice. Like, I don't know. It's weird to think of the inability to like play a champion at that level.
I don't think
But
it's I don't think it's
go on.
necessarily that he can't play the champion. I think the team can't function that way. If you look at what 100 Thieves are struggling with, they can't put River on Brand and Zyra and have
Right.
Ayla be the engage, because the team doesn't function that way. River needs to be the engage. And so when you switch that out, I think Team Liquid might have a situation where the rookies need these, like, the two carries can't play efficiently when they have a third carry and not a tank or some sort of frontline or a bruiser that can create space. And so they're not able to team fight as well. And so my guess would be, can Umti play a Brand game in solo queue? Absolutely. Can he play it within the confines of the 4 players he's playing around and the synergy that they have? Probably not.
Yeah. That's true. But then another philosophical concept I've stressed a lot I've always been kind of frustrated by too, is teams who, when they identify what they're good at, they move away from it, especially in summer. They move away from it because, like, oh, we have to learn how to play this other early game style. We also have to learn how to do this. And it's like, if you know you are a team that heavily emphasizes getting early game leads, heavily emphasizes playing macro, heavily emphasizes just setting objectives and playing, you should just double down on that. You draft around that. You don't draft a Nidalee into Blabber. You don't draft like Brand, right? Like, you start playing, take the Sejuani, take the Maokai, whatever, and then you just play around it. If everyone is on board with that and you set up for it, there's not much he can do. Because if Blabber picks Nidalee and let's say Umti goes Sej or goes Maokai, and well, not Sej, I'd say let's go Maokai, and you want to basically set up a lane to succeed, you just basically don't let Blabber get 3 kills in the first 10 minutes. And he's gonna have a really hard time later, because that's sort of what happens every time they pick Nidalee. It's like, okay, well, he just got a triple kill and like, what is going on? Why are you guys even fighting here? I don't think the discipline issue with TL is going to be as evident as some of these other teams, and they've been able to honestly take advantage of it. If there is an early lead, I think TL is pretty good about mitigating that compared to some of the other teams, which might even, like you said, or the TP back into a lane and die again. Like, stuff like that just doesn't happen. So if it drags out, and you get to mid to late, and now C9 doesn't have a lot of these early game advantages, you can also argue that C9's win rate right now is because they have such a massive gold disparity at 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's pretty easy to close games out when you have a 10K gold lead. Like, you're just like,
not if
anything
you're
works. No.
You can keep doing that over and over and still
for the good
games.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty easy, like I just, it's hard to predict what's going to happen, because this is the first, like, this is what I hate about this being a single round robin, is that we haven't seen a lot of matchups like this where it's two teams that are fairly evenly matched meeting when they're peaking at the same time. That hasn't really happened very much, the way the schedule is right now. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think, TL's been tested a little bit more, so I would probably give them the nod in terms of experience there. But at the same time, C9 is also one of the teams that I find they thrive when they're confident, and they're pretty confident right now. So I can definitely see that. There's also sometimes an overconfidence issue. If they come into this game thinking we are the best team, we're going to stomp these guys, and they lose game one, a lot of times that starts to throw a wrench in the gears. So I think similar to the game itself, if TL gets an early lead, if TL wins game one, it's going to be really hard for C9. But if C9 wins game one, I think TL has enough in the tank. They'll probably be able to answer. It'll be interesting to see, though. Again, I'm leaning 60-40 TL, mainly just because I have a lot of faith in them right now. Defending champs, they've been, to MSI, EWC, made really good runs. They've played against all sorts of international competition. I'm not worried about their mental fortitude. And in a best of series, especially against a good team, I think that really matters a lot.
I think probably your best argument would be, oh, Thanatos is playing so well, lane swap on him. Let's see what you do.
Yeah,
And it's like,
and
yeah, what is
TL
Classic gonna
loves
do?
that right now.
Yeah.
They're very confident with it. They're very comfortable with it. We haven't seen C9 really have to deal with that since last split. So I'm also surprised. I haven't been following because I haven't been playing as much League lately, but I haven't been following the meta as much. But lane swaps are so prevalent and all of a sudden just stopped happening. I know they nerfed it a little bit, but TL was able to pull it off at EWC and it was still fine. So I don't. It's kind of interesting that I've always noticed about the pro scene. Coaches will see something like that and be like, "Oh, it's nerfed. We can't do this anymore," and they just drop it. And it's like sometimes it's only like 10% worse. It's not necessarily bad.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. You've obviously seen more behind the scenes in the scrims and whatnot, and like what happens when a player can't play a champion within a team, or when a strategy they just don't want to use it anymore. Um, it is very intriguing. Like when what you were talking about, like the philosophical points behind that. Like, why is it that you can't integrate? Why is it that when you start doing something very well, you move away from it? The first time I saw something like that happen was moving from 2016 TSM, who like heavily indexed on just early game, and they were winning early games against Gen G and who are
Yeah,
Samsung Galaxy, who made it to the finals that year, and RNG, who were probably the third best team in the world at that point. Like TSM was probably a top 4 team in the world at that point.
yeah,
They didn't make
yeah,
it out of groups because they had literally number 2 and 3 in their group. But again, they were like very close against those two teams. And
yeah,
so then in 2017, they're like, hey, we're going to play a better late game comp because in early game, we just can't blow teams out. And they moved away from their strength. And I feel like ever since then, teams are like, oh, we can play Galio mid really well now. So let's not use it because we want to be versatile. And then you look at the LPL,
yes,
and it's like Doinby is playing Nautilus mid and not worried about people banning him because then he's going to play Pike mid or he's going to play whatever. It doesn't matter what he's going to play. And they
yep,
just like hyper index on these specific niche strategies and saying like, hey, my strategy might not be optimal, but I'm going to play it better than you so that we're
yes.
not computers. If we were computers, I'd lose, but you're human, so I'm going to beat you.
I think this is sort of a league issue because of the drafts, champ pools, all that stuff. I think a trend I've seen in a lot of coaches in LCS, and it's interesting because it's both foreign coaches, like coming from Korea, and domestic coaches. They all have this mentality that when you go to Worlds, you need to learn all these different play styles. You need to learn how to play early. You need to have versatility. You need to be good at all this stuff in order to match the Asian teams. And I think it's probably an Asian mentality from the Korean teams that infiltrated here from their coaching staff. And then so a lot of LCS orgs and staff also pick that up. But I've always thought it was a bit of a mistake because you're not going to get as good as that play style. Like, let's say we're going to play, very controlled macro like Genji, just farm lane, play perfectly, and then we'll win the game through attrition. You can't learn that in a month if you haven't been doing that all split. And so a lot of times teams switch away from this very, very aggressive early game style that they've mastered and got them to a finals and all that to try to learn another play style in order to be versatile. But what it ends up doing is it detracts from their ability to actually play the original play style as well, because they now spend time practicing this other way and they're playing other champs, and it becomes sort of a feeling of you don't really have the intuitive feel that you would have. Like the times you don't really think about a decision, you're just like, oh, this is the right
Mm-hmm.
thing to do. That kind of stuff goes away as soon as you start having to overthink a decision because you're like, oh, we're supposed to be playing slow here. We're supposed to do this. I've seen that a lot, and that's why a lot of NA teams that we were very hyped on go to Worlds, and then they end up choking in groups because they're like trying all these different things. They're trying different comps. They're trying new champs, and they're like, oh, the meta shifted and all this stuff. And you're like, you kind of just went away from what made you so good to even get here in the first place. Um, you don't see it in Valorant. You don't see it in other games. So, for example, watching champs right now, Valorant, you have last night Lev, best team in North America, arguably one of the top 2 teams in the world, played against Talon, who is third or fourth in China or in Pacifics. Nobody expected them to win. They took them to almost 3 maps. They almost won both maps pretty early on. It was very very close actually. And the way they did it was by just throwing these comps and these playstyles that Lev was not prepared for. Like they'd never seen someone play like these 2 agents on this map like that. And it was super aggressive. And even the casters and the analysts were like, this doesn't really make sense, but okay. But it's what Talon wants to play. Like they're used to playing like this. So they just like, you know what? If we're going to be an aggressive, hyper aggressive, not meta team that we played this comp before and practice all that, we're just going to punch you in the face as hard as we can and see if you can take it. Like you're gonna actually surprise a lot of teams with that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think we're kind of getting off topic, but I don't like the mentality that a lot of coaches have when they start going international. They start trying to switch the emphasis. I think TL should realistically try to force C9 into positions where they have to play to TL's ideal win cons. You're going to try to force a late game. You're going to try to force them to have to like play objectives on you. You don't want to let them snowball a lane. Like you're going to try to pick a comp that basically doesn't enable Blabber to get anyone going and force them to have to basically outthink you mid game. And I think they're going to have a hard time if they have to do that because the shot calling on C9 is sometimes a little scattered too. Like I've seen like how yeah, it's a when things aren't going like clear direction, like when it's not an obvious coached issue, like oh, when in this situation, this is what we should be doing. I think they struggle a little bit. There's a little bit of a shot call, like okay, well, what do we do now? Whereas I think where TL is actually very comfortable with that. They have 2 very veteran players who are used to doing that all the time. So I think the biggest win con for TL is that they have to force C9 to play a macro game against them, and they have to maintain a neutral game state in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's about it, I think.
That is
And
the
then after
key,
that,
yeah, to success for Team Liquid. Just keep it neutral, and then when side laning happens, like APA's side lane is much better than anybody else. I think the top 2 team, or not the top 2 teams, but Team Liquid and FlyQuest have the best side laning, and Cloud9
yeah,
don't have to side lane because they're always winning. So we've never really
yeah.
seen it, but I doubt that they can.
So that would be my argument for C9's win con. It's like if C9's able to get some of these leads that they've been able to generate, yeah, it's gonna be tough, right? Like it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a 5K gold lead 10 minutes, it's so hard to play. Or if you have a 5K gold deficit, I should say.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't even matter what your decisions are at that point. You're just trying to minimize the damage. Like
Yeah. Which makes it even more amazing. The Fnatic lost 3 times that way. That's yeah.
dude, I made a tweet about that too. Watching LEC playoffs, it feels like I don't know how Europe. I don't know how G2 is as good as they are when this is the competition they have every year. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if you took a pro team, a pro LCS team, put them in collegiate for 2 years, and then you put them in internationals. How do you think they're going to perform? It's crazy that G2 is still like so good. Because like these teams are just throwing for them. Like it's crazy. I have never seen breakdowns like that where you're playing Ezreal. You should never ever be caught. No offense to Sven, but like, you should never.
Hey, Sven did it once. This guy without a lead,
You know what
okay?
though? That's
Oh
stuck in
yeah,
his
it
head
was twice.
so
I guess
bad.
the dragon
Yeah,
the
yeah.
dragon like again trying to kill a Blanc and then just getting one shot. Yeah, but Noah's was definitely more
It
egregious.
was egregious, man. He eat into their jungle. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that
Uh,
was. All right, I
anyway,
got a couple more topics for you.
yeah.
This one you can go ahead. Actually, I'll go ahead because I've talked about this publicly before. Immortals have been an absolute negative to the LCS since they're re-entering in 2020. They have finished bottom 2 in every out the last 10 splits. They've only made playoffs once. They've been bottom 2 every single time, or maybe sometimes they're tied for like the 7th or 9th back when we had 10 teams. They in terms of sponsors. They are actively burning bridges with people. They make a sponsor with some sort of organization, whether it's Razer or Progressive or whatever it is, and they look back at the videos and they're like, I could have gotten my niece to make a video and it would have gotten more than 100 views on YouTube, and yet you have this whole production team. We're giving you all this money. Like, everything about it just makes no sense. They are absolute negative in terms of the financial model. There are other sports backed industries that are probably looking at this team and being like, they have all this money and look at what they're doing with the team. They're absolutely throwing stuff. They're talking to other sponsors like, we were in esports for a couple of years with this one team who was supposed to be really good. And then, they absolutely burned us and we got zero return. So just stay away from esports. They are actively making League of Legends esports. They are a bad representative, and the LCS should have removed Immortals back in 2022. I don't know why they kept them for as long as they did.
What's the debate here?
Okay, I guess you agree. All right, maybe.
Okay. So, like I said, I like to play devil's advocate. I don't think Immortals is a bad organization in terms of the potential they have. I think their direction has been way too chaotic, and they don't have a clear focus. If Immortals wants to succeed, they need to stop considering themselves a competitive esports team in the league. They need to look at themselves as a brand. What they should be doing, and they did this successfully for a little bit, is doing more community events. They held tournaments. They held scouting combines. They did all this stuff on their own that was actually really good and very well received in their local area. They're one of the few LCS orgs that has a regional base. They actually have like the Midwest or whatever. Like, there are a lot of people there who know who Immortals are because of the small events they do there for, game changers for LCS. Like, they do League or your Valorant centric events for the community. That's what they should pivot to. They should continue competing in the LCS, but they should focus their efforts and their media and all that stuff around actually building their community. Not, hey, we want to be the best team in the LCS. Every time the Immortals puts a video out like, oh, we're gonna win this year, watch, and you're like, come on, man. You haven't placed in the single digits until the league went to single digits. Like come on. It's not. Next year they're gonna be like, oh, if they stay in the league, like, oh, we were top 6 this year. Like, no, this is not how you climb. You need to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, right? And I think there are teams that really understand that, and there are teams that don't. If I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, there are teams that I honestly like 100 Thieves, I think, does a better job of branding themselves as a lifestyle brand and as a clothing brand and as a community than they do a competitive esports team. Of course, they love when they win. Of course, they highlight it like, oh, we're doing great. We've won championships. Also, I don't think a lot of their branding is like, we are the best team in the league. Like, it's not like TL. TL will always have in their videos multiple trophies. C9, they'll always have, look at this trophy. Like, you can't do that when you're 100 Thieves. So their branding is very smart, and it's very much about, hey, we are a lifestyle brand. We sell the best merch. We're hype. Look at our content creators. They're super cool. We have a rapper coming in on our next video. Like, they do that kind of stuff. So Immortals needs to think, okay, well, if we don't have that, we don't have that kind of just like throwaway money. We don't have the championships. What do we have? Well, we have the one thing that had a modicum of success that we did was when we did community events and just build a fan base that way. And you could be the Buffalo Bills of the LCS for a long time, where now they're actually kind of good. But you bring your fans, you crowd a stadium, there's a whole Immortal section that just wants to see them play. You're probably going to lose, but it doesn't matter. You find likable players. Their LCS team should 100% be the best content creators that they can find that can play at that level. They should be finding people who are entertaining. They should be finding people that have personality. You're not going to keep scraping Academy or NACL every year to kind of put a roster together and then throw it against freaking C9TL and then hope to do something. Like, it's unless you have an organization in place that is able to develop these players into that.
Let me get into that, because you just oh man, I'm so frustrated, because what happened was every single time Immortals try to do that, they bring in staff, they just fire them. Whoever is the Immortals management, like above their GM needs to just retire. He needs to be held responsible because they brought in Sharks, who's someone who's known to work well with rookies. He brought in some Korean, prospects that honestly, Castle, at the very least, Castle's looking great.
Yeah.
Even in his losses, people are pointing to Castle and be like, he last split, maybe he was the third best top laner. Who knows? It was a 2-year project. Like Sharks went out and said, look, this IMT is a 2-year project. The first year, we're trying to figure this stuff out. The second year, we're going to make a push for Worlds, right? Don't judge us based on the split. And what happens? They fire him after 1 split. After telling him that what you're doing is good. He had a performance review after the split ended. And what did they say? They said, you're doing great. And then a week later, they fired him. And Immortals at that time were still scrimming. They were so good in scrims that playoff teams like Team Liquid were actually scrimming Immortals despite not making playoffs. That's the type of culture that he was putting. And then you kick him and then you say, hey, we still have the same mindset. And they only say this privately, by the way. They refused to make a public statement because we're going to make it after MSI. We don't want to distract people. Didn't say a thing because people forgot about it. Their management, and in terms of marketing, they decided, hey, we are the Great Lakes. I was born in Michigan. I go back there. I used to go back there a lot, but not anymore because my dad doesn't live there anymore. Mm-hmm. But I'm embarrassed that they are part of Michigan. The fact that they have 2 separate orgs. They have the marketing side, and they have people who actually care and are deeply passionate about growing stuff. And those people, sometimes they do great things like these scouting combines and whatnot. But when it comes to their marketing agency, they need to be a brand. And all they've ever done is, hey, corporate America back in 2002 used to do this. So we're going to say, hey, sports teams used to be like the Washington, they're not the Redskins anymore. What are they? The Commanders.
Commanders, yeah.
Yeah, or the Baltimore Ravens or whatnot. We're just going to do that. We're going to be the Great Lakes Immortals. And they just keep doing all these things that aren't necessarily the way esports are or the way just sports are in 2024. Look at some sports teams and their TikToks. Dude, why do they have a TikTok if they have these huge fan bases? Because that's where the world's attention is on. And they don't understand that. I don't know if they have a marketing CMO, but if they do, he needs to be fired. Because he's robbing them, honestly, with their money.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with all of that. That's why I'm saying, they need to figure out what it is that the direction should be. And it's if you want to have a competitive team and you want to do it on a budget, you build a system and you funnel players into it and you weed out the ones who don't make it and the rest of them create that environment, that culture that the others feed into. The team comparable to that is probably that was the best at doing this, in my opinion, was EG. EG across LCS and VCT was able to put together budget rosters of players nobody believed in, put them through a system, found coaching staff that enabled that, and actually was very, very competitive. They won a freaking world championship in Valorant with a player that came up through their academy scouting system that nobody knew, right? Demon 1. Nobody knew who the fuck he was, and they plugged him in mid-season. Ended up winning a world championship with this guy. Their coaching staff has always been good at this. EG, LCS, right? Put together this random roster. They scouted 2 players nobody had ever heard of, who were Danny and JoJo. Ended up winning their first split. Very competitive in the second split, barring some of those issues that kind of unfortunately happened. And then the next year, everyone's like, okay, what are you done now, right? They lost that whole roster or whatever. They're garbage. They made top 4 with Armeo switching junglers out, by the way, with Shaden. And it was just JoJo and 4 players that nobody believed in. And so it was like, you have a way, if you want to be competitive, that's what you have to do. If you want to be competitive and not pay for it, not hire the best talent, that's what you have to do. You have to have systems in place. Immortals clearly doesn't have that, never have had that. When they brought Sharks in, I agree. I wish any project like that, you're looking at 2 years minimum. It's not even 2 splits. You need 2 years, and people never understand that. So the issue I have with Immortals is you can't say something and then do the exact opposite of how you enable that to occur. If you want to say you want to be competitive and then you do something like that, you're not trying to be competitive. You're just trying to cycle your coaching staff over and over for immediate results, but you're also not willing to pay for either the players or the coaching staff that'll enable that. So that's insanity. What do you mean? You're just hoping to get lucky?
Yeah.
I mean, and then if you're not going to do the branding stuff around the community, then what are you trying to do? What is your actual intention as an org? I never understand when in all the discussions around, who's leaving the LCS, Immortals have been like, we're gonna stay. Why? I agree with you. I don't want you to. No, but I think people around it.
Oh, I see.
Like, oh, I'm thinking, well, they have a lot of money, but like, I don't want them to stay because you're right. They're not beneficial to the ecosystem, right? They're not
I think they're
pushing
harmful. It's
anybody.
not just not
Yeah.
beneficial. Like, sure,
Yeah.
maybe there's scouting combines, and I think there's a group of people that are doing that, but they are actively harming. And I maybe it was ill of me to frame it in that way.
No, I mean it's valid though. It's valid. If you're doing something that makes esports less sustainable going forwards, you're harming the ecosystem, right? If you're going out and getting multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals and then burning it, how is anyone ever going to come back and think that they want to partner with a team again? Uh, no, I agree with that. I think what's frustrating is that it's one of the whenever an org has money and they don't utilize it correctly, which has been the vast majority lately. I mean, now it's gotten better. Like the last 4 years, though, it's so frustrating because you had this endless potential to do something incredible, and you just kind of threw it at I don't know whatever, like new facility or something. um,
let me just
yeah.
give you a hypothetical. If this Immortals was allowed to have 2 years, and the first year Sharks was like, hey, I identified the Tactical and Ole are actually a really good duo, and our top laner is actually a really good top laner, and let's change out. Let's actually bring in Shaden, or let's bring in, let's bring in Shaden, let's bring in Quad because they were killing it in Academy,
Mhm.
and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you have a top 14, right?
Yeah.
Within that 2 years, like you actually could fight for Worlds going into 2024. Like you
Yeah.
weren't just like saying stuff, but you kick Sharks, you bring in a new coach who wasn't even coaching last split. No hate to Inero. It's just this wasn't his roster, right? He didn't have
Oh
the
my
hand to
gosh.
build in it. You don't add
Then
anything
the
in.
other this I mean again I have nothing against Nero. I think he's a great person. I think he's good at what he does. He was not the Golden Guardians coach.
Yeah, he wasn't.
People keep attributing Golden Guardian success to Inero because he was the G. I'm like, yeah, it was a good roster, but you put that roster together. Who on that roster was somebody that people believed in and was going to do well? It was the coaching staff that developed that. Licorice got like basically dropped from C9. Like there's like he put a good roster together, but it was the coaching staff that actually enabled them to reach the peaks that they did and actually compete for a title. uh I think I don't know. I don't know if it's like Immortals scouting or GM or front office or whatever is so bad that they're like, oh well, he was associated with that, therefore he must be able to coach coach like what Golden Guardians did. He was the GM. I don't know. The whole thing is just so weird to me.
I agree.
Um
You brought a GM to be a coach of a team who already had a coach who was successful. Like that Immortals
yeah.
last split was the best split Immortals had since re-entering. Even though they finished last, just like look at the team with your eyes, you can
Yeah.
tell they're doing very well.
I Will Dominate, who is the most critical LCS person of all time, was like, Immortals, he's like, I'm not even being sarcastic. Immortals was legitimately good this split to have. This is the best Immortals team to have gone last ever. And it's like, it's so true. You look at them play and you're like, oh my gosh, these guys actually have potential.
They beat Cloud9
But,
twice. Like, come on. They
right.
did something. Yeah.
I mean, that should be a metric of success, right? If by the end of the split, it's not about where you placed. Did you see demonstrable improvement in a roster? That is the mark of a coaching staff. So I agree. It's ridiculous that they fired the coach and then they bring in someone who was not a coach to coach better. And then now look what they're at. It's like don't even, this doesn't even work on paper. How can you expect it to work in reality? So no, I definitely. I mean, I don't even know what the debate was about because I definitely think Immortals. If I had to pick, out of the 8 teams, the two to leave, it's definitely Immortals one. I honestly think it's Dignitas too.
I agree. Yeah.
I just don't see what Dig even gets out of being in the league. They heavily invested this year into their roster, obviously, and for me, it was sort of indicative of like, well, maybe Dignitas does have sort of a history in League of Legends. Like they're historic LCS. Like they've been around for forever. They're one of the legendary teams in the LCS in terms of history. But if they wanted to end on a good note and they just like, let's just put all the money we have instead of budgeting over the next 3 years for like just put it into this one roster, make a shot at making Worlds. This was kind of the team that you could see doing it, right? Like you got Spica, you got Jensen, you have a lot of veterans. They've all been there, but it doesn't feel like a team that you put together and compete for multiple LCS championships. Like it, I don't
Yeah.
know. If you're trying to build a long-term roster, I keep XU, right? Like I don't
Hmm.
invest in Spica. I invest in my coaching staff. I invest in my resources around it. It just feels like if there's two teams that are going to leave, and then everyone's talked about 100 Thieves too, but I honestly hope 100 Thieves stays. Like I really do. Um,
I think
I
Papa
wouldn't be
Smithy's
surprised.
speculate. He said, I don't think, he said it on the Oracle Elixir Discord, but he was like, I don't think
Yeah,
they leave. So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, but also 100 Thieves is historically one of the orgs where overnight things change.
Yeah, that's true.
They dropped their entire social marketing staff in 2 days, and then they rehired all of them like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I agree. Immortals is for sure the number one team on my list. That's like you guys haven't done anything. You guys haven't been moving in a direction that has been showing you're going to do anything. So the one little blip you had, then you screwed yourself out of it. Like it actually, you know what blows my mind? I don't know the details of contracting and all that, how much what their contract was set up. Like it probably cost them money to fire him.
I think so too. And the other thing
That's
that really bothered me,
absolutely
go ahead.
insane to me. Like
The thing that really bothered me was the fact that this guy's on a visa. He left his family back in, and came here
yeah,
because they dedicated 2 years. He was like, I'm gonna dedicate 2 years of my life. I just came off of
yeah,
Blacklist. I've had success. I don't need you guys. You guys need me. And then they
yeah,
lie to him. It's not just that the
yeah,
way they fired him. And now he has
yeah,
to leave the country. Like,
yeah. It's absolutely there's so much to dislike about that whole situation. That's you can't have fans. That's the thing. If you
yeah.
act like that, if you behave, you don't have fans. It doesn't matter how good your content is. It doesn't matter how good your branding is, your social media is. You don't have fans when you behave in a way that make people dislike you.
And don't even bother to explain, like, oh, no, no, we will. We'll put out a statement. And they don't. Also, what they did with Digon was so messed up. Do you know what happened?
No, wait, what?
So Digon found out, Digon's really good friends with Sharks, and Digon found out that they dropped them. And so Digon made a tweet, and he messaged, he didn't say anything. He was just like, oh snap, you guys won't believe what happened. And as soon as IMT found out, they ignored Digon, his DMs on like, hey, I want to make some sort of announcement. I also don't want to step on any toes. Let's work together so that we can both, obviously he wants
Yeah,
the first scoop because he's the first person to hear about it, but at the same time he
yeah,
doesn't want to step on. He wants to do something. And IMT just like tweeted out, "Hey, we've let him go," and he completely ghosted, like didn't respond to Digon. And so Digon's like, "What the hell? Like I had this scoop. There was no reason for me to go to you guys and wait. I could have just said something, but I waited. I was being professional, and you guys
yeah,
acted this way." And they were like, "Oh,
yeah,
we didn't know." Like, what do you mean you didn't know?
yeah. This is they're one of the orgs where it's the classic stereotype. It's an org ran by a bunch of kids who like gaming. You know, it's
I
really hard to see something stuff like that. And I get what they mean. Like, oh, we didn't know because they've never done something like run a multi-million-dollar company. You know, they don't know the ins and outs of dealing with media reporters, stuff like that. I've seen that a lot. Like the unprofessionalism that a lot of people talk about in esports is not that people are intentionally unprofessional. They don't know what professional means. So they will just do things because it's like, oh, it's like, well, let's just say something because he's going to leak it otherwise. Not realizing, well, the reason he's approaching you is so that you can give him information that's safe to give and he can reveal it the same time you do or like slightly before. So it makes him look good. You can then cater the message and it looks better for everybody.
it's a
Like
win-win, yeah.
so stupid. Like, and it's just out of inexperience, I think, and out of like maybe I don't know incompetence. Like
And
it
then they
might
still have their
be,
job somehow. And then, but Sharks doesn't. Anyways, I don't want to keep
yeah,
harping on IMT.
yeah.
My last topic, and maybe if you have another one we can talk about, but I don't want to keep you for too long. I'm pretty sure I know which side you're going to go on, but I'll give you the floor. My argument is Impact is not the best top laner that North America has seen. Agree, disagree?
History or
Yeah, historically. In North
in
America,
North America.
people are saying he's the top GOAT, or he's even the GOAT of North America. I don't even think he was the best top laner that we've had in North America.
Well, would you say that Bjergsen was the best mid laner we've had, or
Historically,
Doubleless
yes.
was it? And at points, sure, you know, like, but was Doubleless the best ADC we've ever had? I mean,
Yes, he had the highest peak.
yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I don't know. I think peak Berserker is something we just haven't seen very much at all. Like, but he hasn't had the longevity yet to say that.
That
So
is true. I think
yeah,
in
or
terms of
it's like
peak,
yeah,
who would you? I guess I'll go. I would put Huni above Impact, and Feel free to disagree with me. But
that is a hot take. Okay.
no, it's not. Okay, first of all, look at Huni. When he comes into the league after being up, this doesn't weigh what he did on Fnatic, right? Doesn't weigh into what he did in North America. But he had the only undefeated split. I guess he won every single game. Let's put it that way, because there were the G2 that went when it was they didn't lose because they were ties, like they were 1-1 in a lot of games. They never lost their two. I don't count that. He was the only Fnatic team made it to semifinals in both MSI, the first MSI, and Worlds. Like honestly, that semifinals they should have won that game 5. I think there was a bug.
Yeah.
Anyways, we move on. He comes to Immortals, absolutely dominates. Every single top laner was this guy's like little child. He was the father of every top laner. He raised the bar for everybody in top lane.
This is like 2013 though, right?
This is 2016. No, I'll come to more recent. This is just like his career in North America, right? Then he leaves Immortals, like he's unable to carry the Bums so hard in 2 years because honestly, they were really good teams. Like I think that legitimately that the format first of all was bad. So if it was nowadays format, he would have absolutely made Worlds and made finals. Yeah. But the fact that they had to play against the TSM, who was probably a top 4 team in the world at that time. Yeah, the best team North America has ever sent international. Like, it sucks. But again, he was like hard carrying that team, goes to SKT, wins his first split, makes it to MSI, wins MSI, goes to World, like wins the third split, goes to Worlds, makes it to Worlds finals, and doesn't win because like the meta changed and it was like Ardent Sensor, comes back to Echo Fox and like plays out of his mind. He was the absolute carry. It was a very weird year to begin with, and I have a video talking about 2018. Goes to 2019 onto Clutch Gaming. Guess what? No one expected Clutch to do anything. They made it to Worlds off the back of this guy playing like just hard carries. 2020, I think he played I don't remember exactly what happened in 2020, but then was he on EG for a little bit?
He went to TSM.
Well, that was 2021.
EG and then TSM, I think. He ended on TSM.
Yeah, and then on TSM, he was injured. And guess what? They finished first in regular season. This guy was insane. And you look at anybody talk about him.
Well,
no.
I actually worked with him. I actually worked with him.
You did? Really?
Yeah. But they did end at first, but he was sort of a liability on that team. Like he was not playing well. Huni top lane the last like year of his career was like not good.
The beginning of the first split, yes. The second split, no. He was like constantly had leads. Vladimir was crazy. He was actively playing very well with Spica. Spica had that MVP season, and I honestly argue that it was behind Huni. Also, when you talk with players behind the scenes, apparently Huni just like understands the game at a completely different level. Like, it was like Huni's the only perfect player I've ever played with. Like he knows what to do at all points of the game. He completely understands the game, and he relates that to being coached by Coma. He was like, when I went under Coma, it went from like playing a game to like poetry in motion, like drawing. The way he sees it is like a tapestry, the way he described.
I do think the split or two that Huni didn't perform quite as well. He was actually just kind of didn't care anymore. Mm-hmm. Talking to him, he was like, I'm just playing. He's like he lost that fire of it. And it might have been due to his wrist pain and all that, but it was also just kind of like I said, the injury is tied to the mental burnout. I think he was just overplaying competitive league. That's why he wanted to try coaching for a little bit. He kind of just didn't really want to compete at that level anymore, I think. So his time on TSM was kind of just like him floating. Same thing with Bjergsen tried the coaching thing, went back, started playing again, then realized, oh, you know what, I don't really like playing either. So I'm just going to retire. I can see where you're coming from. I do think my opinion on like anything prior to 2018 and after has to get weighted very differently, right? Like a lot of the achievements that players have had prior to 2018, 2019 is like, it was in a time when the league was also it was easier for people to win stuff like that.
It was so much harder. There was no double elim. Like the format was crap.
The overall skill level was so much lower that players that were like doing stuff that like insects, right? Like people saw that as a crazy first thing. Now it's like silver players are doing this, So the overall skill level of the league, the understanding of macro, the understanding of the game itself has just constantly progressed every year. And Impact has been at the top of the league, top 2-3 consistently for the last 6 years.
He finished last place or ninth place 2 splits ago. Are we forgetting that Impact is the only winner of LCS to finish top laner to finish to not make it to playoffs twice. He finished 9th twice. Once on that Team Liquid, where you can blame Doublelift for not trying all you want, but again, then he goes on and does it again. Impact, people call him a force multiplier, right? I cannot give you credit when you are a force multiplier when Huni was the force. You know, Huni was hard carrying.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Yeah, but you're now you're comparing like two different types of player, right?
Yeah, and I'm saying one of them is just better.
Well, okay, you could argue, yeah, he's a better top laner, maybe. I don't really know, because again, I don't understand League at a high enough level to watch them lane and be like, this guy's better than that guy unless they're playing against each other. It's hard for me to judge that.
They did play against each other, and he always beat Impact. He
always beat Impact.
He didn't win, but in terms of like the matchups, he was always beating Impact.
Yeah,
2016 he beat Impact.
I mean,
2017 he beat. Okay, 2016 summer he did lose to Impact.
I mean,
but that was not based on him.
If it's the same way that like looking at like Doublelift or Bjergsen being the goats of NA, it's like a lot of it's based on the fact that they've won 6 LCS championships.
It's how they won the 6 LCS championships.
Well, I mean,
like Xmithy has won 6, right? Xmithy has won 6 championships. Does anyone consider him better than Blabber?
Xmithy is heavily underrated. I think a lot of other pros have said Xmithy is like one of the best junglers ever played with, because he enables people. He's not a hyper carry like Blabber is. He plays jungle in order to win games. So like I kind of see Impact the same way. It's like he's not always going to carry the team, but he plays the game in a way that enables his team to win more often than not, and he has 7 championships.
I guess this is my argument. You cannot be the best in your lane when you cannot individually carry a team. Huni took that 2018 clutch, took it to Worlds. None of those players, like you can even remember, besides probably Demonte, he's still in the scene, right? Whereas
was Vulcan on that team? No.
Yeah, Vulcan was on 2018 clutch. Yeah. Okay, there was Vulcan as well. My bad. And then you look at Impact, and whenever it had to be an Impact carry, he never did. He's always been a force multiplier. When you look at Doublelift and Bjergsen, when they won in 2017, it was completely off the back of him absolutely carrying, right? And that's why people give him that credit.
Yeah, I would say Impact, a lot of times it's because he's picking champs where he doesn't have to carry. But if you look at Impact when he's on a carry role, like with EG, he played Jax. He had some 1v9 games. Like, he doesn't opt to do that often because he usually has players around him that he wants to enable. Like, he wants his mid laner to be on a carry. He wants his jungler to be on a carry. So a lot of it is that force multiplier aspect is you can't carry the team and be a force multiplier. You have to pick and choose where your resources are allocated. Impact tends to default to playing tanks. That's just his kind of desired play style, right? Because he knows he's good enough at laning. He's going to be able to get to where he needs to be on a tank. He plays Ornn, he plays, whatever, Cassante. He knows he's going to get to a point where he's going to be able to enable his team to win, but it allows him to really do what he wants to do, which is shot call, and he wants to talk about the game itself.
So here's my question. Let's put it this way. This IMT squad, if you put Impact instead of Castle, do they improve significantly?
I think so, actually, because he has a heavy role in coaching younger players. So if you Impact is one of those players where I would put him on a squad full of rookies and expect them to do much better. The EG success that they had spring 2023, or 2022, purely on Impact and Inspired and Vulcan working with Danny and JoJo.
I heard it was a lot more inspired. I didn't work with them, but from talking to the coaches, I heard it was a lot more inspired, and Impact was like the more serious,
Yeah, but Impact was the one who would stay after practice and 1v1 people and coach them.
Oh, okay.
Inspired was the shot caller. He's the one who wants to dictate the flow of the game. Him and Impact work together a lot, but Impact is the one who's like, you need to know this matchup this way. Impact coached Jizuke a lot when Jizuke was mid laning. They would sit there and just go over scenarios together. He's very hands-on when it comes to developing players, especially rookies, because he doesn't play that much. He honestly, they call him the GM guardian or whatever, because his solo queue ranks are always below GM. So if you're trying to go from Masters to GM, you're gonna have to go through Impact, and it sucks. Imagine going into your GM rank up game and you're freaking laning against Impact, because he just doesn't play. So his account decays all the time to Diamond 1 or whatever, and then he plays it back up to GM and he just sits on it. But He doesn't play a lot, so he does a lot of those VOD review. He sits there and he'll go through tons and tons of VODs. He'll go through like working with players. APA said a lot, like Impact and Core, like two of the hardest workers when it comes to like hours put in. He doesn't solo queue that much though. So
How much does being a good teammate, weigh into being the best in your role? Because like my argument is, if you put Huni, right, like before he retired, even the TSM Huni, if you put that on Immortals right now, they win way more games, because at least first of all they have direction, because Huni is going to be calling Armeo and telling him exactly what to do. Second of all, they're going to have an actual carry they can play around. Versus if you put Impact, guess what? They're probably like the sort of intenseness that Impact brings to a team, which we've seen it happen multiple times. I don't see them winning more games than if they actually had a carry. You have to have a
I
team
think
that has carries for Impact to fit in. Whereas with Huni, it doesn't matter if you have carries or not. He can fit into any team.
I think you would win more games early with Huni, and then you would win more games late if you gave Impact time. Assuming that the cultures and the coaching staff and the players had the capability to do that. If you put Impact on a team with like a bunch of players at the NACL level, are they going to get to a competitive LCS level? Probably not. You have to give them potential, right? Like, but I think when you talk about someone whose main, I guess, benefit to a team is not solo carrying them, it's to augment the development of that team from the beginning of the split to the end. Impact has a much greater effect than someone who just hard carries every game. Because we saw what happened with C9 when they had Summit, for example. Summit was a freaking hard carry. Summit lost them the playoffs being a hard carry, because he didn't ever develop with the team. He just always played like he did. Hard carried all the way through the split. They get into playoffs, team started shutting him down, and they crumbled. Like, he couldn't adapt to that. He could not play a low resource tank, like just sit in lane and allow your team to win. He had to solo fight and had to die 3 times under turn. And it was like, you solo lost the game for your team, even though you're trying to carry, because you can't adapt to that. So
But Huni could. We
that's
saw
where
him
I
on 2017, like when he went to T1 or SKT back then. He didn't play carries until Koma basically told him, "You just play tanks. Once you're good at tanks, we'll let you play carries." And that
no,
did happen.
I know. I'm not. I'm talking about Huni. I'm saying Summit, right? Like something like
Yeah.
if you have one versus the other, one dimension or not, it doesn't enable you have. That's the problem and the kind of the beauty of League. Every player is not just the role they play in game. It's like what role do they fit on the team, right? So the difference between, like we were saying, and Blabber, right? They fulfill different roles on each team, even though they're both the jungler. You'll have some teams where shot calling comes from the support, and some teams where the support is a rookie. So it just depends on how those individuals fit into the team chemistry and what the play style has to be for that team in order to achieve wins. I think at some level, because there's so many variables to the game, you can't look at just individual stats and be like, this is the best top laner ever if their overall record is 50% win rate. Because so much of it is, how do you interact with your team? How do you get your team wins? I think Impact, I don't know the stats. I'm curious now. Impact's overall win rate in pro is probably a higher percentage than Huni's.
Probably, yeah. He has won the most LCS games.
With more games played too,
Yeah.
right?
I would say
So
probably his
I just think
percentage is higher. Yeah.
there's a certain level of consistency that's there.
Actually, no, because Huni in North America only lost 1 game in his first split, lost 2 games in his second split, both to TSM, and then on Echo Fox, I'm pretty sure they went 15-3. So that's like 3. So in 3 splits, he lost 6 games. So
Yeah,
I
but
would maybe,
the number of games has also shifted every season, which is also awkward to make stats like less
yeah.
comparable. Because then, like this split, they're all doing best of threes. Are you counting like each 2 wins as 1 win, or is it like 2 separate games, or is it
I think
like
it's Huni played a
it
split
should be
of
each
a best
game?
of 3 as well. Huni played a best of. I guess Impact also played an extra, but yeah, it is. It is
Yeah,
a little bit
it's weird.
difficult.
It's really weird. And they,
Yeah.
he has a world championship with T1. But it was obviously the first one, so it's not like. Again, I
Huni has
don't
an
count.
MSI over him. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't count like winning worlds in what 2001
13.
or 2002,
That was
whatever. Like
13.
that,
Yeah.
that yeah, not even close to winning one like 2 years ago. Like
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
difficulty level is just night and day different. So um it's hard to compare. I think who to say, like if you were to say who is the best top laner, then I can understand your argument for Huni, and I would have a hard time arguing against that. If you were to say who is the NA GOAT top laner, I have to go with Impact. Who has made a bigger, no pun intended, impact on the entire legacy of the LCS in the top lane than Impact?
Entire legacy, I disagree. Because in 2016, when Huni came, he'd made every single top laner in North America 10 times better because it absolutely stomped them. Like,
But
Huni
that's
single-handedly
1 year.
raised the level of North America, whereas Impact was like maybe better than most top laners at all times, but he never was the bar that like he may have been the bar, like you have to be this good or else Impact's gonna beat you, right? But Huni was like, everybody, if you're not like leveling up times 10, then you're not even gonna
Yeah.
exist in
But
the same
aren't you?
game.
I mean, aren't you also looking at like if he raised the bar that high, isn't that just saying that the bar below is the bar before is way lower? Like the overall skill level was so much worse than it is
That's
now.
fair. Yeah.
Now you know, like because like no offense again, I love the guy. Darshan was one of the best top laners, right, in the LCS for a long time, and then
Not a long time,
basically
but yeah.
good like that span of time, right? Like those
Yeah.
years, and then couldn't get out of academy to compete with LCS top laners. He was the academy goat, right? He was the top
Yeah.
laner in academy, but he wasn't really quite good enough to compete consistently against like even guys like like Licorice, Fudge, like all these other players at the top lane. Like I think the overall skill level again is just so much higher to even be at a baseline now. But Impact has still consistently been winning championships in the last 4 or 5 years. It's really hard. I mean, obviously, yeah, you have a down year sometimes. It happens, but it's really hard to have that level of consistency when it comes to a game like this because there's so many variables. You have changing players, you have changing like league rules, you have all this stuff. The meta is changing constantly. Different champs are coming into play. Like Asante didn't even exist. Now he's freaking everywhere. And
Yeah.
like it's hard. But I think there's something to be said about the ability to adapt. And the players that have always historically done the best are the ones who don't necessarily play a style of league that they have to stick to. It's more about can you adapt and can you build the team around you in order to win. And that's kind of been, that's why TL is always top four, always top four. Every team Impact has been on has been top four,
I mean,
except for
FlyQuest.
that one down year.
Oh yeah, they were top four. Yeah.
Yeah,
They were top four one split, and then the other split they were ninth.
Yeah, they had a rough. Also, that split was one of the most hyped FlyQuest rosters of all time, and it was like it just fell apart for whatever the talent, right? So if you look at that and you look at the outcome of it, are you going to ever say any of those players were bad? Like that team was insane. It was stacked with Vulcan and like it's like none of those players are bad, but for whatever reason it didn't work. I don't think it's like it's not a knock on their individual ability to play the game. It's that team didn't work out. So the overall effect of it was that you lose when in reality, all these players are on different teams now and they're all winning.
Not Viclin Prince. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, Prince, how, okay.
And Spica's not winning. Come on.
God, I don't even talk about it. Prince though, man.
Dude, the drop off was so sad. I cannot envision it anything except mismanagement. Like, there's no way that guy. First of all, there's no way he doesn't win MVP. And then second of all,
what I got, and I didn't see it from the inside, but what I can gather, just kind of knowing a lot of those people and what I saw happen on stage and like during the games and all that, I think Prince just had too much ego to even listen to those people. Like
ego for
Vulcan
Song and Impact, really?
Like I think Prince historically has been known to have like a super like he's just an ego player, even in Korea. And so it was like I can imagine it being hard for them to like pull him out of a bad performance. Like if he has one bad game, it's not going to stop there. It's just going to be him kind of doing nothing rest of the game. He's also like I've talked to high level players who are like, yeah, he runs it down in solo queue sometimes when he's tilted. He just doesn't care. Like,
interesting.
So I don't know. I mean, he obviously everyone saw it. Like his mechanical ability when he wants to play is phenomenal. Like he's one of the best ADCs in the world. But yeah, I could not believe that roster choked that hard with him.
Yeah. All right. It's funny. Dirty Neptune on YouTube says nothing can save IMT, even as long as they have Greg Armeo, which is funny because we were talking.
I mean, I feel so bad, man. Armeo is one of those guys. I think he did everything right in terms of how he should have approached his career. He really, his stint with C9 and like coaching and all that, and then going to EG, like he's done everything he needs to do. It just feels unfortunate that he doesn't have the circumstances to make it work, or maybe he's just not good enough. I don't, I hate to say
He
that,
hasn't
but
gotten a chance. Like if you really think about it, he's never had a
that's what I
starting chance
mean.
where he gets to develop under a coaching staff and learn. Like
Yeah.
APA has had more time working with
Yep.
Impact and getting like to do 1v1s and stuff like that than Armeo has ever been on a team. I think this is the first time
That,
he's like,
that's that's
yeah.
that's that's kind of what I'm getting at. I feel bad because it's like, okay, you can look at a player who's never had any success over 5 6 years and be like, okay, maybe they're not good, but they haven't, like Tomo, right? Like I feel so bad for him. Like he got the worst possible shot at starting an LCS, and it screwed him. And Kenvi, speaking of Immortals,
Yeah,
another.
Envy.
And okay, I say this all the time. I tell the story, but I remember when Kenby was on 100 Thieves Academy and I was working with them, and I told him very specifically. I was chatting with him, and I was like, "Are you trying to go LCS next year?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I think my only shot right now is Immortals." I was like, "You need to seriously consider what this is going to do to your career." I was like, "If you go to Immortals and you struggle, you may not get another shot. Like they
Aw.
will kind of like put you in a position in which every LCS team's going to look at you and be like, didn't really perform. Maybe we don't take him." And I was like, right now, you have so much capital being the best jungler in academy. If you don't get a shot this split, maybe you wait till next split. Summer is always when there's more turnaround. And he's like, but then I get it. He wanted to make some money. He wanted to actually start getting paid, get off the academy contract. He got signed to Immortals, had a terrible year with like the team was just not functional. And yeah, you haven't seen him playing in another LCS team since. It really sucks. But that's the unfortunate reality. And in that sense, too, when your original point, like Immortals is sort of like hurting the scene. Like that's another part of it. They're taking players that have so much potential because they're always going to try to grab these academy, NACL talents, and they're going to sort of ruin their career if they don't do well. And they can't do well. They're not set up for success. How could they possibly do well? Like,
Yeah, it frustrates me when you make judgments on players. If you look at any player, like even APA is like a really good example. You look at APA last year and his champion pool, the way he played lanes, his laning, his mechanics, his side laning, they've all improved. But the fact of the matter is, he's worked with Spawn for many years. He's had a structure where he's able to improve. If we don't give people structures where they can improve, they ain't gonna improve. And then you make judgments on their very first split or their second split, and or like in Armeo's case, like he's just jumping around and never really had a
yeah,
coach that could sit down and actually like give him leadership. And maybe who knows, maybe if he stayed under Sharks for like 2 years, we would be saying, hey, he's a top 3 jungler. But we're never gonna know because either
yeah.
he gets kicked, his coach gets kicked,
I mean,
something happens.
even his time with EG, it was so unfortunate. I actually argued with them about this because I was working with them that split. That they were splitting time between him and Shaden. I was like, you guys are kind of shafting both players. It doesn't matter that you have issues with the way that one of them plays and the other one addresses those issues. So you swap them and then you plug this guy in and, oh, Shaden's better at carrying. Let's put Shaden in when we want to play carry. And then you put Armeo in when you want to play more of a facilitating jungler. It's like by doing that, you were shafting both of them. And that's what happened. Both of them they look like crap because they're subbing in and out. None of the other players knew how to play around them. They didn't know how to play around them like the other players. Like it's the again, it's one of those issues of if this doesn't work on paper, and in theory, this shouldn't work. Why are we doing this?
Honestly, that was so much fun. I really enjoyed just like arguing whichever side, even if I agree with it, disagree with it, like playing devil's advocate. It was a lot of fun. The stream was like almost 3 hours long. I think with Doc Respawn was like 2 hours. I will leave a link into his stuff in the intro and everything. You can check the full video if you want to see like everything without the chopped up parts. Because yeah, there were a lot of discussion esports industry, like player mentality. He's worked with a lot of players, so he's given a lot of behind the scenes. You should check out his stream, his YouTube channel as well. If you're a gamer and you play video games and don't want to get injured, so you don't have to do physical therapy, watch the stuff that he does. He gives very simple exercises that you can do that will, prevent injuries. And honestly, prevention is way better than curing stuff. So overall, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much to Doc Respawn for, coming on. And yeah, Shopify is playing tomorrow. My mood will either be very happy if we beat FlyQuest, or if we don't look very good, not so happy. But I really think the boys can pull it out. We've been playing better, and I think we have a lot of we have a win con for sure. Boogie has made this team look alive, and we're fighting. Besides that, I did a Ayla interview today. I don't know how many more interviews I'll have for tomorrow, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This whole like idea, the topic, the disputing everything has been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to really making this a thing. I think I can keep doing this every week, and I'm excited to continue this project. It's been a lot of fun. I know it's only been 2 weeks, 2 episodes, but both episodes have just been a lot of fun. I think you guys have enjoyed. We've had a lot of people come tune in live. It happens right after LCS, like within 30 minutes after LCS ends, just because I need to finish my interviews and whatnot. But yeah, we're pretty much live right after LCS, so it's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for hanging out, and let me know like tips and comments. I know someone in Twitch chat, I think it was Yoshi, or not Twitch chat, the YouTube chat, actually mentioned that I probably, while streaming, I actually have the name of the handle of my guest. So I think I'll start doing that from next stream. You might not see it on the YouTube VOD, but at least on the Twitch stream, that handle should be there.